Perfect. Perfect. All right.
All right. So you did New Year's in Baltimore, Perk, huh?
I did on the harbor. Yep. Yep.
They got big barges showing up, throwing up fireworks.
No, they did have some fireworks there, but we were across the street. It was raining for a little bit, and then we went outside and we were across the street. So we saw some of the fireworks, but yeah, it was me, Feronis, Hal, Joe Shad, and Marcel.
You,
So
you guys are inseparable.
yeah, well, you get when you're in Baltimore, you kind of stick together. There's not a whole lot of options, but it was a good time. Let's do it.
All set.
All right. Happy New Year, Dolphins fans. Yeah, we can still use that greeting. It's only January 2nd, but more importantly, it's January. That means it's no longer December, a month when the Dolphins have gone 3-6 the last two seasons. January is the month when the Dolphins dug deep last year and beat the Jets to get into the playoffs. This year, they have to dig deep to defeat Buffalo on Sunday and win the AFC East. Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I'm your host, Chris Perkins, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins columnist. That's Dave Hyde, your South Florida Sun Sentinel columnist. A special thanks, as always, to our viewers for making time to join us. As a reminder, if you miss any part of this show, you can download the podcast on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. All right, Dolphins fans, Dolphins versus Bills, Sunday Night Football, Hard Rock Stadium. Today, we're going to talk about the Dolphins now having a two-game season, Buffalo and that opening round playoff game. We'll talk about the offensive shrinkage in big games and whether that changes this week. Yeah, that's one of my things. The offense, they got to come through in big games. We'll also talk about whether cornerback Jalen Ramsey should shadow Buffalo's Stephon Diggs. Of course, we'll take your questions, comments. We'll make our fearless predictions for the Dolphins-Bills game. This is obviously a deep show. Let's dive in. All right, Dave Hyde. So the Dolphins, they now have a two-game season, Buffalo and the opening round playoff game. Here's my thing. The Dolphins have to win a playoff game to have a successful season. No excuses. It doesn't matter of injuries, if it's a road game, whatever. They have to have a playoff win to have a successful season. Do you agree with that, first of all?
Well, I think that's been the working idea. And, they have a window here, as we've been saying since August. And the unfortunate thing, really, if you're a Dolphin or a Dolphin fan, follow them right now, is you got to wonder, are they the same team they were just a few weeks ago? The injuries are starting to mount and take a toll. Some guys have never had injury history. Some guys have lengthy injury history, and that was always a concern with them. And so, what I wanted to see was the Dolphins as a whole team, what they could do. And I get every team's hurt. Baltimore's secondary was beat up, and the Dolphins couldn't get to it. But when you see Chubb go down, when you see Xavier Howard go down on top of Jalen Phillips and Jerome Baker, my fear is it's not going to be the same team.
Yeah, that's kind of the big fear here now. Look, Buffalo, we know Buffalo is hot, right? They're on the 4-game win streak. I know Miami.
Did you see their game Sunday? How they were lucky to get by the Patriots, and Brady Zappi threw about 3 million interceptions in the game. And they were lucky the previous week. Who'd they play? Was it Denver? I forget. They played another bad team or no good team. So yes, 3 weeks ago they were hot when they were beating Kansas City and they gave Philadelphia a great game. They whipped Dallas, and I thought, oh boy, here comes. But the last two games gave me pause, and it's almost both these teams are somebody's going to get the number 2 seed here.
Right.
and it will almost be like they could just be falling over the finish line.
But isn't that like that? That's what I'm liking about the league this year. Once again, that there isn't that one dominant team, right? We've seen Kansas City stumble. We've seen Philly stumble. We've seen San Francisco stumble. Everybody has stumbled. Detroit, we haven't seen them do it in big games. Dallas, haven't seen them do it in big games consistently. Miami, Cleveland. So yeah, you just go down the list. I'm excited about the playoff. I think Cleveland is going to knock somebody off. I really do.
Yeah, Cleveland could go to the Super Bowl. Teams have done this with a great defense, and if they manage Flacco just a little, he's throwing almost double the amount of passes to Deshaun Watson, and it's like, let's go manage him a little, take away his bad. So, but a couple of weeks ago, I thought San Francisco was the dominant team. Now it's obvious. Now you have to say it's Baltimore after what they did to San Francisco and the Dolphins, and they're putting it all together at the right time.
I know, and my thing with Baltimore is I don't trust them holding leads. Although it wasn't a problem last week, was it? And
when you're up 37, when you're up 37, you can hold that lead.
Right, exactly. Okay, so Hyde, Miami did beat Buffalo last year, 21-19 at Hard Rock. Since then, they've lost to Buffalo 3 straight. They lost 32-29 in the regular season, 34-31 in the wild card, 48-20 in the regular season this year. Jerome Baker should be back this week, but if Xavier Howard is not back, Dave, I just fear what's going to happen to the Dolphins. Number one, we'll talk about the offense later, but, Tyreek doesn't look like he's the same. Who knows? Jalen Waddle, a high ankle sprain is usually a multi-week injury. And so even if he comes back, I would imagine the best he'll be is 80%. So you've got Hill, Waddle, Mostert. We'll see how he is. But, that's the offense. And then defensively with no Chubb and no Phillips and possibly with Xavier limited, I do wonder where this team is going to get its fireworks from, offensively and defensively. It's good that they're at home. I think that's the best thing, that they're at home. They're 13-3 at home under McDaniel. That's about the best thing I can say here, Hyde. How do you feel going into this game with all this stuff around the Dolphins?
Well, like I said, my fear is they're not the same team because of injuries. On the other hand, every team has weather. Look at Buffalo. They lost their top 3 defensive players for most of the year. Now Daquan Jones, he started practicing a couple weeks ago, and I'm wondering, I didn't look at the box score to see if he came back this week, but they weathered some bad injuries this season, and so. The question becomes, this looks like such a great season a few weeks ago. You throw a loss like that one, which that was a huge game, and not even to show up really in Baltimore. You can't blame it on injuries, I don't think. Baltimore had the one place you would have liked Baltimore to be hurt was the secondary if you're the Dolphins, because you can attack that, right? And they didn't get to it. And so this is you talked about the previous games with the Bills, and the only one to me that really matters is the previous one in Buffalo this year, because the one the Dolphins won, Buffalo lost 19 players to the Heat. Then you had Tua out in the playoff game, and so the Dolphins haven't played well on the road this year. And as you said, now they're home. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, to Pretty Boy, I'm trying to walk you off the ledge. 13-3 at home. And the Dolphins did beat Buffalo the last time that they played them at Hard Rock. So I'm trying. Peter McDowell, welcome. Canadian fanatic still holding out hope. Rob from UK, Hooked Up Joe, I Got Game, New Jersey, Judy Williams, Matt Newton, welcome to everybody. We're trying to preach some positivity here, but we also want to preach some truth and some reality. So I'm not sure where we're going to end up today, but it's a situation where I think that the whole the whole Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer rebuild kind of thing is on the line here with these next two games. It would be nice to beat Buffalo and get the AFC East title, but again, you've got to win a playoff game. And let's go to this one, Hyde. This question from Rob. Are you surprised, as I am, that any Vic Fangio defense can be so dominated despite the high quality of the opponent in the Ravens? I am surprised. I didn't see this coming. However, this is now a defense that has given up 48 and 56, so I don't know where this defense really is. Hyde, are you surprised?
Well, I mean, the previous week they played a great game against Dallas.
Yep.
Dallas had a late touchdown, but for the most part, they held them as much as any teams held Dallas in check this year, other than, the Bills with 31-10 or 31-3 that game. So I was shocked that defense got run over like it did. And, Lamar Jackson was great, but they also took, the throw to Zay Flowers, that was right out of the Dolphin playbook. I mean, that was something we've seen the Dolphins use a lot this year. And so the question becomes, can they regroup quickly enough? And unfortunately, we're into the intangible part of the season. I thought this was all going to be about tangibles, about, wins, losses, points, takeaways. Yep. Now we're into focus and mentally, can they regroup and all that? And I was hoping January wouldn't be about that.
I know it. Stephen Bewley Jr., Happy New Year to you. Here's a question from Jimmy, or a kind of a statement. He says, and if Tua can't throw under pressure, no chance. 3 sacks on Sunday. I think the game that the Jets game, the 30-0, was the only game that they won where Tua got sacked 3 or more times. About Tua's role in this on Sunday, he's got to step up, right? It's not a one-man team, and it's not all on Tua, but with Tyreek slowed, with Waddle slowed, what can Tua do here, Hyde?
Well, let's, Darren Bell, I thought, broke down the superpowers of Tua the previous week. Very good. And if there's 9 qualities that make up a quarterback, he's got superpowers in 4 of them: the accuracy, the timing, the vision. What am I missing here? The anticipation. Okay.
Yeah.
His kryptonite, he can't move. He's slow. And he's not good at creating or recreating plays. The exact opposite of Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, if the initial play breaks down, he can, in fact, maybe the thing he does best is create a play on the run. Whereas with Tua, he reads the defense great on first time. But if he has to move off his spot, the defense moves him off his spot, or he's got to run. I had a stat in my column going into the Dallas game. He had 5 runs for first downs this year. Zach Prescott, who's not a running quarterback, had 20. Josh Allen had 40 and Lamar Jackson had 45. And that sort of tells you, if you're going to talk about the greatness, when Tua is great, he's carving up a defense with quick reads, smart plays, accuracy. And when he gets in trouble, he gets rushed, gets put off a spot, and he's got to create something on the run.
Here's something from Peter McDowell. Now, I agree with you on that. Here's something from Peter McDowell. Let's go to the other side. It says, I feel like we really need the crowd to be loud and to try to force Allen and the line into some mistakes. I think we need to run the ball to manage the clock. What do you guys think? I will say this. Teron Armstead yesterday was talking about the crowd being on the road and how that kind of interferes with the Dolphins, not the Bills, but with the Dolphins, and because of the timing of the play and, everything like that, all the pre-snap motion. I don't know if it is if it has the same effect on Buffalo, but he did say something about the crowd being a factor. But running the ball to manage the clock, yes. But I will say this also: Devon Achane has 107 rushing yards. They rushed for 152 or whatever it was against Baltimore, I'm talking, and it had 0 effect on the game. 0. This team needs big plays, especially offensively.
Yeah, you look at the identity of the team and what teams are doing. And Tyreek Hill said it after the game. the smart defenses do. Cover two, just play, and you want to run the ball, try to beat us with paper cuts, and we're just not going to give up the big play. The dumb defenses, the Washingtons, New York Giants, gave up, Tyreek Hill one-on-one battles, and Hill beat them deep. So I don't think they're going to see any. They're going to see teams saying, you want to run for 150 yards, whatever. We're going to take away what you do best, which is the deep threat. And the question is, then, can the Dolphins answer? Can they come up with something? Can Tua be happy throwing the shorter passes when they're down? And he got, as he said, he got a little antsy and pressed the game, led to an interception on Sunday.
And that leads us perfectly into segment number 2, and this is the offense. It's another big game, and the offense is overdue to deliver. This offense has shrunk in big games this year. It did it last year also. The 34-31 playoff game at Buffalo, 31. That's a nice total. Your offense scored 2 touchdowns. Zach Sealer had a touchdown in that game. They've gone 1-4 this year against the best teams on their schedule: Buffalo, Philly, Kansas City, Dallas, Baltimore. Here we go. 3 touchdowns against Buffalo, but that's in the 48-20 loss. Okay, so that's good, but whatever. Against Philly, it's 1 touchdown in a 31-17 loss because Jerome Baker had a pick 6. Against Kansas City, 2 touchdowns in a 21-14 loss. Against Dallas, 1 touchdown in a 22-20 win, and last week 2 touchdowns in a crushing 56-19 loss. So the offense is not showing up in the big games. I think that's a huge problem. They showed up last year at Baltimore when they come back and win, and they showed up in the regular season Buffalo game, 32-29 in Buffalo, where Tua just got outdueled by Josh Allen. But Hyde, this offense, and to go to Tyreek, this offense the team is 2-5 when Tyreek does not get 100 yards receiving. Tyreek probably, we see him going down after receptions, not getting that yak, not using that speed and quickness. It's because of the left ankle. We see him pounding the ground in pain sometimes after he gets tackled. What version of this offense are you expecting to see? Because I don't see them scoring more than 2 touchdowns, maybe 3. I don't know that's going to be good enough to win.
Yeah, and they don't have, to me, they don't have a fallback plan. They're not a power team. Okay,
right.
People run the ball. Well, they're going to run the ball the way they do. They like to run outside the tackles, use their speed. And so I don't think they have, we can switch it up here and do this other thing. They very defined what they did, and they did it very well with their speed and their downfield big plays. And, can they change on in week 17? I don't think so. So somehow they got to make this work with the way a lot of teams do with backups. And again, let's not forget, Baltimore was basically without its entire secondary most of that game. Okay, Marlon Humphrey went down early, but again, if teams are just going to play, we're going to take 2 safeties deep and keep everything in front of us like some center fielder in baseball. The Dolphins have to come up with an answer.
Yeah, and look, they've been hitting Durham Smythe. That's had no effect. He's not a difference maker. Ted O'Connor asks, what's Mostert's status? We expect that Raheem is going to be out there on Sunday playing. He had the knee and the ankle. That kept him out of this game. Tony Reese says Tyreek had a TD drop again. He did. Chase Claypool dropped a touchdown pass. Now, Claypool's would have been a heck of a catch. But Tyreek, Tyreek, come on. Didn't he do that in Philly? And
the Kansas City, he had the fumble return for a touchdown. So, I mean, these are your 2 biggest players, on offense, Tua and Tyreek, and neither of them have had great games and on away from home against good opponents. The Dallas game, I thought, that was I thought, okay, they found a way to crack the code in the fourth quarter. They've done it, and then now this game didn't even get to the fourth quarter against Baltimore. That really was the surprise to me, how badly in all phases they got beat. Okay, we were sitting here talking about the defense got manhandled. Special teams gave up coming out in the third quarter when you got a chance, they gave up a long kickoff return, and then Jim Harbaugh going on 4th and 7, and saying like Mike McDaniel, we can do this too, and they scored a 35-yard touchdown. So, they got to find some answers this week, and start with say Happy New Year, say Healthy New Year, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is absolutely crazy, the situation that we find ourselves in. In both years, you go from 8-3 to in January, you're like, man, what just happened? What did we just watch?
Let me ask something, Perk. Do you think this team is frail? I mean, there's the basic infrastructure. Bradley Chubb every other year he's missing, and I'm just going to go down the list of.
Yeah.
Armstead's hurt every year. You got Tua's healthy this year. Mostert, this is a career year for him, and every running back's missed a game with an ankle or something like that, so we're not there. But Xavier Howard's been hurt a lot. It's not like it's a young team. This rebuild, they got guys with some age on them and guys with health questions, and they've been unlucky. But they've also they've built with some guys with health questions.
Yeah, you were very good about pointing this out in the offseason and throughout the early part. They took calculated risks. They knew what they were getting into, and they stayed with a lot of these guys. Now, they've been fortunate on some of them. That's the strange thing. Tua stayed healthy. David Long, who missed 6 games each of the last 2 years with hamstrings, he stayed healthy. Xavier, for the most part, has been healthy, but it's been the other guys, right? Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Jalen Ramsey and guys who don't usually miss games. They've missed games. I think the Dolphins' depth is really good, but I think that the depth has come through. Look, the offensive line could have been a disaster this year and last year, but these guys have, this has been the plug and play, and Tua gets the ball out of his hands quickly. But it's like you say, they don't seem to have a good plan B, Hyde. Like when the speed is gone or when the big play is gone from the offense, now what? Do you have an intermediate passing game? Do you have a run game that can sustain, that can actually move the chains consistently, that can score touchdowns for you? I just haven't seen that. And so I think defensively, you're a little bit better, although the defense, again, you've given up 48 and 56. I think the defense can switch a little bit more from man to zone or from read and react to attack. But now even defensively, if you don't have Chubb and Phillips, which you won't, and then you're missing Xavier, that front back thing that you did with the pass rush up front and the pressure in the back, now that's gone. And what is your plan B for that? I don't know. They've got to, and I wrote that really, I think now it's more about mentality than physicality. You've got to set your mind to, we're going to find answers and we're going to execute little by little, play by play, because if this team doesn't have the big plays, offensively or defensively, the pick sixes, the sacks, offensively with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, you've got to be able to sustain. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Baltimore had 3 75-yard drives and an 89-yard drive. The Dolphins have to be able to do something similar to that. I don't see that consistently yet.
You talk about mentality. If I'm Mike McDaniel and I come into the media press conference and all the questions are going to be about injuries, I come out and I read a list. Here's what we got. No more questions about injuries. Okay. This is a time to make a statement that, okay, I'm going to give you what the status of everybody, but we're not going to sit here and talk about it for the next 20 minutes. Okay. We're moving on. We're going to play with who we got. Eric Spoelstra's line. We got enough.
Yeah.
Okay. We got enough. That's what you get. That's what the line McDaniel's got to set this week.
Hey, how about this? We're getting back to Tua. Peter McDowell says Tua has no plan B when the pocket collapses or when his first option is covered. We need to see a big game from Tua for him to be considered elite and to deserve a huge pay increase. Tua's going to chump up a lot of that salary next year. And, that's going to happen whether they win a playoff game this year or not. What do you need to see from Tua? Tua can't run. He can't take over the game. Like you mentioned, those quarterbacks at Dak and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Tua, he has one option, and that's to throw the ball accurately. If his receivers aren't up to the job, if they can't get the yak, if they can't break loose for the 60-yard touchdown, what is Tua's role? Like, what can Tua do to influence winning?
Well, I mean, again, I get back to what Darrell Bevell said. Here's what he does great. This is his game.
Yep.
You got to keep it on those lanes of anticipation, accuracy, timing, vision. That's what he's great. Play breaks down. That's not, creating plays isn't his forte. Okay.
Right.
So when he's been at his best, he understands what the defense does. He knows where he's going with the ball. And I disagree with the question. If his prime receiver isn't open, he's shown an ability to go to 2, 3, 4 very quickly. It's when the rush gets to him and he's got to move and figure out what to do. And frankly, you don't want him running the ball because we've been there last year, and will we get past that point at some point where there isn't a fear of concussions? I don't know.
Yeah. The scrambling ability, how important is that Tua has it? Rob says, true that Marino didn't scramble. Brady didn't scramble much, but even he could do it when required. Every other top 10 quarterback in the NFL today can scramble better than Tua. Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes. Does Tua need to learn how to use his feet? And he's never going to be a scrambler, but does he need to learn how to use his feet to get out of trouble and find an open receiver? I just don't think that's Tua. I mean, he did the jiu-jitsu, so maybe that's the offseason goal for him is better footwork. I'm just not sure that's in the cards for Tua.
Bottom line, he's not fast. Okay, he can't escape, and so that's not his game. And so you got to work with that. The problem and something as he moves on. Look, Lamar Jackson had to overcome things to get to this point, right, where he's at this level. Can Tua overcome? When you play good teams, you're going to get a pass rush. No matter how good your offensive line is, you're going to get a pass rush. You're going to be flushed out. You're going to have to move. Can he develop that part of his game better?
Yeah, that's the big question. And I don't, he's never had to do it, really. I don't think he ever had to do it at Alabama. He didn't have to do it earlier in his career here, but now you're at a point where you've got to continue to develop, or what's the you're either green and growing or ripe and rotten. So ripe and rotting, not rotten. So we'll see. Is
that from Texas? Is that from your Texas background, Perk?
It is. I thought everybody said that, but it might be. The Texas background is the hay is in the barn, that dog can hunt. But I don't know, maybe that is part of Texas folklore also, or one of our sayings. All right, Hyde, let's go to segment number 3. And this is the case for Jalen Ramsey shadowing Stephon Diggs. Now, look, some of this is going to depend on Xavier Howard's availability. We know that Stephon Diggs, last time they played, 6 receptions, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, we know that Jalen Ramsey shadowed CeeDee Lamb against Dallas. And, still he ended up with 6 receptions for 118 yards and 1 touchdown. Here's the deal. Stephon Diggs and CeeDee Lamb ended up going to the slot a lot. And so that got Diggs away from Xavier Howard, because Jalen Ramsey wasn't playing yet, and that got him into a Diggs versus Kohu matchup. And CeeDee Lamb, the same thing. They moved him into the slot, got him away from Ramsey, and so now it's CeeDee Lamb against Kader Kohu. So, I think that I'm not sure what having Jalen Ramsey shadow Stephon Diggs is going to do, unless you have Ramsey follow him even in the slot. I don't know why they didn't do that with Garrett Wilson when he shadowed him. But did I say Ramsey? It was Garrett Wilson. I'm sorry, Ramsey, not CD. Yeah, Garrett Wilson. I'm sorry, I got confused on that one. But they moved they moved Diggs and Lamb into the slot. He shut down Garrett Wilson. I'm sorry, I had that confused. But if they're just going to move Diggs into the slot and put him on Cater, I don't know why Ramsey did not follow, Garrett Wilson into the slot. But if they're going to do that, is shadowing an effective tool?
Well, I mean, you have to have a philosophy on a guy like Stephon Diggs. First of all, Diggs only played 65% of their offensive snaps last week for Buffalo. So I'd want to know what's going on there. Okay, he had, 4 catches for 36 yards or something. So something's wrong there with Diggs. But to the point, you have to have a philosophy. Are you going to, in the slot, are you going to bracket him? To me, it isn't you don't want Kohu against Diggs, which Buffalo obviously took advantage of. Okay, you want to have a philosophy. Okay, the safety is going to help you here, or you're going to pass off something, and that's what Belichick would do. Belichick would often put the best cornerback on the second best receiver, and he'd bracket the best receiver. He'd double team him in part. So I get everybody's, well, just have Ramsey follow him, maybe. Or maybe with what you have, the best thing is, okay, if he's going to play in the slot, here's a philosophy we're going to use to cover Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation because you want to be able to do what you usually do, and that's not shadow guys. That's not what Vic Fangio likes to do. He tells us at the same time, you can't let Stephon Diggs beat you and expose you. So, maybe you just commit to double coverage just as much as possible. I don't know what you do with Josh Allen. It didn't seem like they put spies on Lamar Jackson that much. I'm not a big spy guy because if Josh Allen just sits back there and passes, well, now you've wasted a defender. It's pretty much only if he's going to run that it benefits you to have somebody spying on him. So I'm not sure what you do there with Josh Allen. Do you think I would not do it. And Jerome Baker will be back, and strangely, Duke Riley might be better equipped. He's more athletic to do something like that. Do you put a spy on Josh Allen, do you think?
I do with whatever Bill Belichick did last week and dress it up because Josh Allen had an awful game. I mean, I think started off 2 of 11. He threw the ball 30 times for 169 yards, interception. He ran the ball 11 times. So, Belichick came up with an answer for that. And if you're Fangio this late in the season, you look at what's going on. For 2 weeks, the past 2 weeks, the Bills' offense hasn't looked good. Okay, and so Fangio's been around long enough to borrow ideas and hide them and dress them up. And for all the questions we have about the Dolphins in Buffalo right now, they're happy their season's alive because I think since Ken Dorsey was fired, they're 5-1. But they're sputtering the last 2 weeks. They haven't looked like a good team. If New England doesn't throw 5 interceptions, they win that game. Yeah,
and that's Buffalo is a strange team because I counted them out a few weeks ago. Yeah, and I just thought they just made so many boneheaded mistakes this year, and that the NFL does not reward teams like that, but. I guess it could turn out to be that way. Hyde, while we're talking about shadowing Stephon Diggs, let's go to some just plain, maybe you just need to do what you do better. Therese Thomas writes in Duke Riley ability in pass coverage. Isaiah Likely, and they're doing, they're running the pick plays and Justice Hill is getting some yardage. I'm not sure that the linebackers had their best day either against the run or against the pass. What have you thought about the linebacker play? David Long, I think, is over 100 tackles. He's been okay, but what have you thought about linebacker play this year?
Well, I mean, Baltimore on Sunday picked on Riley and Eli Apple looked to be something was going on there where they were being attacked. They weren't making the plays or covering, and Baltimore was attacking them. And so, if you're Vic Fangio, how do you cover for that? Who do you have? Eli Apple's a odd story this season. He was started, then he's benched, then he's inactive, and now he's counted on again. And is that just they're desperate for cornerback play at this point? Again, Fangio has got to be able to hide some players, and unfortunately with the injuries, he's going to hide them more and more. I thought the first couple series against Baltimore, Fangio wanted to see if they could get a pass rush with 4 men. And they got nowhere. So we got to adjust. And the adjustments didn't work either. So now they're down their top 2 pass rushers in Chubb and Jalen Phillips. And, Sealer and Christian Wilkins are 9.5 sacks for Sealer right now. So they're getting pressure on. But, I don't know how you hide some of the guys like – they couldn't hide Riley. They couldn't hide Apple when an offense wants to attack them.
Yeah, and Javon Holland did not have a good game either. He looked like he was rusty. He did say after the game that he was rusty, but he didn't play well either. By the way, some of these questions that you guys are submitting on the chat, we always appreciate the chat. I'm going to answer online later today. So Steve Camara, Stephen Bewley Jr., Richard O'Connor, Matt Newton, Call of Duty 1. I've got you down. I've got your questions there. Hyde, I Got Game New Jersey says, this is the biggest game in Miami in the last 30 years.
That's what I said last week.
Yes. So, and next week is going to be 31 years, the biggest game. But in Miami, I don't know if he's emphasizing home game or a game for the Dolphins. But, I don't know the last 30. But again, to me, this validates the whole screw those picks and we're going for veterans, the Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel. I mean, do you think is this
I don't think this validates it because they're going to be in the playoffs regardless. The playoffs will validate it. But I thought last week was the biggest game in decades because they have a chance for the number 1 playoff seed. They have a chance. They come out of that game with a win, and they're the team everybody's talking about for the Super Bowl. Okay, they're the number 1 playoff seed in the AFC. Get the bye, get home field for the playoffs, which is where they need to be. And so, this is obviously a big game, but they're going in the playoffs regardless at this point. And 2 seed or 6 seed, big difference. But it's to me, it's not of the magnitude of the statement they could have made last week.
Yeah. Here's a couple of questions, which gets to your thing of which team are we going to see. One from Jack Thompson. Look at Hill's stats: good versus bad teams, bad versus good teams. This team is middle of the road. The quarterback shrinks versus good defenses. Matt Newton writes in, if Fangio's defense is designed to take away the big play, how did the Ravens create so many big plays on offense? So, what is the identity of this team, Dave Hyde? I mean, are they that high scoring? You got to watch out for this offense and the defense can make plays, or are they just a team that beats up on the 98-pound weaklings and then struggles against a quality opponent?
Yeah, they come out of this season with a loss to Buffalo here, and they go out of the playoffs, and that's what we're going to be saying. That they expose bad teams, but not to take it to a different sport, but it's sort of like the Florida Panthers taking it to hockey of all things. A couple years ago, they were the highest scoring team in hockey.
Yep.
Fans were chanting, "We want 10, we want 10." And at the end of the season, they had trouble in the playoffs. They just blew up that whole system. They fired the coach because they said that doesn't work. That's fun. It doesn't work in the playoffs. And this is a fun year. How is that not fun? Right. What brought this entertainment product? But the bottom line is winning. It was fun because it was winning in a fun way. And And if they can't recreate that in January, then there'll be some soul searching done in the offseason.
Yeah, and here's something from Judy Williams here. Miami will have to match Buffalo's intensity on Sunday because Buffalo might need to win to make the playoffs. Is there a chance the Dolphins come out just kind of, we've got nothing to lose? I don't think they come out like that, but I agree matching Buffalo's intensity could be a major issue.
Well, that's what you got to do every game, isn't it? You got to match the other team. So I don't think anything like that will be a question or a problem. We've seen this team play hard. We've seen McDaniel have the team ready, and it's a veteran team that knows what's on the line. So matching intensity, if I'm rating, that might be my 12th issue in the game. It's health, it's playing a good team, and it's finding some answers that Baltimore I thought the identity of the team when they beat Dallas, they showed something that game. They came back. The defense played a good game. The offense came back. Special teams had a good game, obviously. But Baltimore just brought a lot of questions to the fore of what they can do against a really good team on the road.
Yeah, and here's something else from Peter McDowell, and I've seen a lot of people hitting on this in the chat. Peter McDowell says, I think Greer has to be accountable to a point as our poor recent drafting has meant we have no good depth like the strong teams who draft well, Eagles, Ravens, etc., as Cam Smith and Channing Tindall are not in the mix. You do have a need for corner, Cam Smith. You did have a need for inside linebacker, Channing Tindall. Achane is probably the best thing, the only thing to come out of the last two drafts, right? With all due respect to Skylar Thompson, a 7th-round pick who did his best last year. How much is that coming into play right now? Because I would tend to agree. I think it's a secondary thing or a back burner issue. Secondary, no pun in Cam Smith. But it's a back burner issue because you're going with those veterans right now, but this offseason, that's going to be an issue as you have to sign the expensive veteran injury-prone free agents to make up for the draft stuff. So I think in the future, it's going to be more of a problem than the present, but it is an issue right now.
Well, they needed to at least get some representation from the 2nd-round pick this year, 3rd-round pick. But let's remember, the philosophy of this whole thing was we're going to accumulate draft picks and use them the first 2 years. After that, we're going to trade basically a draft for Tyreek Hill when you factor the picks, the money, and we're going all in from there on. So we're not going to build with draft picks. But to the question's point, anytime you have 2nd, 3rd round, you need to get something out of them, and they got nothing out of them. So and when you have scarce picks those years, that even amplifies the need to get something out of more. And those are two positions they could use some help on.
Yep. Nuke 942001. Got to catch up. Crazy. Back to work today. Good to see you. Here's a couple of things here, Hyde. Miami Kid Jay. The honeymoon for McDaniels and Tua is over. Get your popcorn ready against the Bills. It won't be close. And then this one from Matt Newton right after it. If you want to assess how good your team is, look at how your best players play against the best competition. If they come up small, the rest of the team will follow. The honeymoon for McDaniel and Tua, if they lose on Sunday, I think people love both of them. The honeymoon could be over, but people won't be ready to run them out of town. And then as far as
that's going to happen, the question, it will be an issue. A question though, Tua's contract. You got. Yes. What do you do? I mean, this isn't a question for today. Tua could have 2 big games, and you say, a big game Buffalo, and then a big playoffs, and everybody's okay. He's worth money. If he doesn't, though, there's going to be it's almost like they're in a bad position then. Of do you offer a big contract, fearing that he's not going to keep developing and take this out? But to your point, I don't think either of them, the honeymoon over stages doesn't blend into, okay, we're ready to run guys out of town. We've been there plenty through the last 20 years.
Yep, yep. All right, Hyde. It is segment 4. It is prediction time, baby. Dolphins against Bills, Sunday night, Hard Rock Stadium. I'll go first if you want.
Go for it, Perk.
All right, I am going. Dolphins fans are going to hate this. They're going to absolutely hate this. Forgive me in advance, Dolphins fans. I'm going Dolphins 24, Bills 21. I think the Dolphins pull this out. Now, I say Dolphins fans are going to hate this because I picked the Dolphins to win at Buffalo. I picked the Dolphins to beat Philly. I picked the Dolphins to beat Kansas City. I picked the Dolphins to lose to Dallas, and I picked them to beat Baltimore. I probably shouldn't be admitting that, but that's the truth.
I'm not going to add all that bad up, okay? But I'm going to go.
I missed on every big game.
You know, part of the problem is we've seen this team play so well this year and ahead, and I've seen Buffalo. I thought they were done. I didn't like their age and questions coming into the year, and they started off. I thought they're mid of the year they're done. And but I'll go with Dolphins 27-23 and say home game, a lot on the line. I'm not ready to and I don't want a cold winter like we've had in so many years here.
That's right. Exactly. When you talk about health, there is Tua with the shoulder that we haven't really talked about. Mike McDaniel said that he's fine. There's Tyreek.
You know what? Let me stop there. Quarterbacks and shoulders, that's a scary thing. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm not saying McDaniel isn't saying the right thing or he's being honest, but you know, it's just something you're gonna have to watch as he goes, because he doesn't have a. We all know he doesn't have a 100-mile. He doesn't throw 100-mile-per-hour pitches, and if he has a hurt shoulder, that we'll have to watch how that goes.
Yeah, and he had the thumb the week before that he hit on a helmet, so that's both of them left thumb, left shoulder. Tyreek with the left ankle, Waddle with the high ankle sprain on the left foot. We'll see how Xavier Howard is with his left foot, but again, you aren't going to have Chubb, you aren't going to have Jalen Phillips. This is a big test for the Dolphins' mentality. I just think that you're at home where you're 13-3 over the last 2 years. Once again, 7-1 under Mike McDaniel this year. You've got to make a statement that nobody's coming into our house in January and pushing us around and winning a game that we need to win. So, they're going to need stuff from Raheem Mostert, from Devon Achane, from Teron Armstead, from Durham Smythe, that interior offensive line, Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones and Rob Hunt. We think that he'll probably be back. Lester Cotton, all of those guys, everybody has got to do their part, because I think that there's been different parts that have broken down at different times in these big games. And for whatever reason, the good teams have been able to take advantage. So everybody has really got to be on top of their game. And I'm hoping that that's the case, but we have not seen that against the quality opponents this year.
I'd go with a different intangible if we're going to intangibles. And to me, it's confidence. Their confidence had to be shaken. I've said this before, it's a Pat Riley line. You're going to lose you're going to lose games. The problem is when you lose, you get blown out. Then you got problems, and you got to find answers for those problems, and you have to worry about players losing confidence. And so the question becomes, are the players they're putting out there? I'm not talking Tyreek Hills and the Jalen Ramseys. I'm talking the Rileys and now Eli Apple, the guys who were exposed some. Where's their confidence level going to be at? And because they know that Buffalo is going to come in and try to find them.
Yeah, they are. You're right about the confidence. That's going to be a huge thing this week. Tim D says the Bills' offense is terrible. We will win this game. Tony Harrison says I'm due. Thanks, Tony. I am. I'm losing all these big games, so I appreciate that. A couple of people are reminding us that Josh Allen has a shoulder injury. Hooked up Joe, and I got game New Jersey. Rob says Dolphins 24, Bills 23, if we can win the turnover battle. Dave Harbor, always good to see you, Dave. Buffalo 31, Miami 20. So we're gonna see here. I got game New Jersey. Yeah, Rob Hunt should be back. We'll see that's kind of what Mike McDaniel has been hinting at. Here's something for you, Hyde. Matt Newton says, I was wrong about Butch Berry. He's been the most valuable coach on the roster this season. Let me ask you this. Who's done a better job this year, the coaches or the players? I think it's very tough. And you asked that after the Baltimore game. That was a big disappointment. And we're talking about Vic Fangio's defense and Mike McDaniel's offense. But the players, it's a players' league. So I would say the coaches by a slim margin. But who do you think has done a better job this season?
Well, I would start with the coaches because they looked at, let's go to the offense, what they have in Tua. Again, here's his strengths. Let's build our offense around his strengths. And for 15 weeks, with a few exceptions, or 16 weeks, no matter how you want to count it, they've been the number one scoring offense, okay? Because they've got to those strengths, and that's been their identity there. And then Fangio, look, Philadelphia wanted – they thought they had him as a lot of teams wanted Fangio. So, it wasn't a surprise to me the Dolphins rose from – where they were the first month, where they were finding their way to the fourth-ranked defense. The surprise to me was what happened to them in Baltimore. That I didn't think that was going to happen at all.
Yeah, I didn't either. It's I don't know. It's just such a disappointment. Hooked Up Joe says 27-20 Miami. Peter McDowell, Hard Knocks tonight should be an interesting watch. Yeah. Jimmy, Dolphins 28-20 over the Bills. It's I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. Raphael Courtwright, Dolphins 24-23, nail biter at the end. So we'll see what happens here, Hyde. But I'm hoping that my luck changes. Again, if it doesn't, I'm sorry, Dolphins fans. You can put this one on me. I keep thinking that they've turned the corner. I just keep thinking that. So we'll see if they have this week. That's Dave Hyde. I'm Chris Perkins. Thanks for watching Dolphins Deep Dive this week. We will be with you next Tuesday at noon, sunsentinel.com.